In today's video, we're taking a look at the latest rumors around the NHL. We're looking at teams involving the Montreal Canadiens, Edmonton Oilers, Toronto Maple Leafs, and the New York Islanders. Could the Islanders also possibly be looking at a potential coaching change? We also have an update from the NHL Global Series in Sweden, news from the NHL waiver wire, and NHL player safety. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot of news to cover here today. Let's kick things off with the NHL Global Series over in Stockholm, Sweden, which kicked off here today. The first game just wrapped up, featured the Detroit Red Wings doing battle against division rival the Ottawa Senators. Of course, both teams have a few Swedish players, so nice homecoming for them. The Ottawa Senators invited Daniel Alfredsson to be behind the bench with DJ Smith and his staff for this game. It will be for the next one as well when they play the Minnesota Wild here in a couple days' time. Obviously, Alfredsson's been doing a lot of work with the team, spending time on practice, player development, that kind of stuff. So I know long-term I can see Alfredsson possibly getting involved in coaching. He was coaching youth hockey, which I know is not anywhere near the pro ranks, but same sort of thing we saw with Marty St. Louis before his jump to the NHL. So we'll see. Either way, it's a nice gesture, and Alfred can be a great help on the bench and offer some insights as well. Ottawa had a terrific first period. The shots on goal didn't really look great. Looked like Detroit carried more of the play. By the time I got home, I actually missed most of the first period, but got to see about 2/3 of the game. But Ottawa built up a 3-0 lead after the first period, including a power play goal, multiple goals from Brady Tkachuk. Great start for the Sens. Detroit could not capitalize and get any pucks behind Jonas Korpisalo, but certainly was getting a decent amount of shots. The second period was a whole different story. The Sens start off great. I think it was the first minute and 15 or so. Josh Norris scores. It's 4-0 Senators. Thinking maybe a goalie change coming for Detroit, but they stick with it. And then they scored 4 unanswered goals over like an 8, 9, 10 minute span to tie the game up at 4. And it stayed that way for the rest of the second and into the third. The Ottawa Senators actually ended the game on the power play so they could start overtime on the power play. Could not capitalize, and then after some pretty entertaining back and forth 3-on-3, a little bit of 4-on-4 there because of the penalty expiring as well, but some really entertaining overtime, and then with just mere seconds remaining, Timmy Stützle scores the game winner to give the Sens a 5-4 overtime win. Something he had, it was like a baseball swing. He had to wait for the puck. Batherson tried to pass it out front, hit the Detroit stick, did a little all the way up and down. Timmy had to wait for it to come down to the good height and batted it in out of midair. It was a really beautiful goal. So obviously Senators get the victory, even though they coughed up a big lead. It's not sure how they'd want to do it and how they drew it up, but hey, a win is a win is a win, as they say. And of course, then Detroit gets a point out of it as well. So highly entertaining game for the kickoff global series here for the fans in Sweden, which is great to see. We get some other games. Detroit goes at it again tomorrow, this time with the Leafs, and then of course we have Ottawa plays their next game against Minnesota, and of course Toronto also plays Minnesota as well. Both these games for the Senators are considered home games, whereas both the Leaf ones are road games. So I am sure that was probably because Toronto gets a bigger ticket gate than Ottawa at home. Although it's not completely fair that Ottawa loses 2 home games here to the series. Obviously it would be nice, but at the same time, somebody had to lose 2. You can't divide it up evenly no matter what you do here. But obviously I understand from a ticket revenue standpoint why Toronto is considered the away team both times. Some other news around the NHL, a few other updates on the waiver wire. Columbus had Remstrom on waivers. He did in fact clear, so he could be reassigned. No other waivers news today. Coyotes defenseman Juuso Välimäki is going to be out for a significant period of time as well with an injury. Sounds like it could be several weeks. The Washington Capitals are going to be without goalie Darcy Kuemper for a bit as well. He was hurt in practice, took a shot off of area. Looked like it got him almost, I think it was like in the back of the leg area. I'm not sure if it was more of the knee or where exactly, but there's an area where there's no padding. And he is injured and will be out for an extended time. We don't know the exact timeline here just yet, but it sounds like it's not going to be real short term either. So that's bad news for the Capitals, who have been playing very well lately. as well. So certainly they've already had goalie Hunter Shepard called up, who's done well for them as well. So Kumper getting injured, not really great timing, but there's never a good time really for your goalies to go down. Here's an incredible stat just to show you how solid of a year and kickoff first season for Connor Bedard, the first overall pick in the 23 NHL draft. Taking a look back here from courtesy of Sportsnet Stats, if you take a look at former first overall picks, like in the recent, past 15, 20 years, he has the most goals through 13 games played. Now, I know 13 games is not a huge sample, but still, the fact that he's got 9 goals in 13 games, a lot of people predict it. He would probably score at least 30 this year. I mean, that's well on pace for more than that. I know when I did my early season predictions, I said he would get at least 30 goals and probably upwards close to 100 points. And so far, it looks like he will. Like, he's a real special player. Looking at other first overall picks, even players who have had a lot of success, Ovechkin, for example, his first 13 games, he had 8 goals. Bedard's got 9. We know how good of a goal scorer Ovi is, one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. So the fact that he's right there with him says something. Austin Matthews opened his rookie campaign with 4-goal output against the Ottawa Senators on his very first game. But by the time he hit the 13-game mark, he only had 6. So after that big night, he did cool off a bit. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins also had 6 in his first 13 games. Connor McDavid, Patrick Kane, a few first overall picks who had a ton of success, had 5, and the other first round picks in between all those guys had less than that. So it goes to show you what kind of special company Connor Bedard is in, and we all knew what his potential was, but he's living up to it in a major way. Imagine as that team in Chicago gets better and he gets stronger line mates to play with, how that's only going to get better over time. Now, speaking of Patrick Kane, there was previous reports about some of the teams he had meetings with. We know he's likely going to be signing a contract probably sometime in the next week. There's about 7 or 8 teams that he has interest in that's mutual that are going to be having some meetings, or some of them already have taken place. There was reports, though, that he had met with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, those reports are being denied. I know John Shannon, formerly of Sportsnet, was the one who put out the information about him meeting with the Leafs, and now he's saying that his Leaf sources are denying that fact. And now saying Kane and the Leafs have not met. Doesn't mean they won't, but it hasn't taken place here as of yet. But there was some belief that there was some interest there. But as we all know, tons of rumors around the Leafs and improving their defense. As much as Patrick Kane's a phenomenal player, has a great career, I really think they need to focus on other areas of their team to be making additions. So we'll see what they do. But at this point, they're not in the mix. Doesn't mean they won't be, though, before it's all said and done. Montreal, one name that we thought for sure we'd be talking about in the trade rumor mill as the season went along with Sean Monahan, but he's actually had a really solid start. I mean, last year he did well with the Habs too. Didn't even make it barely through halfway through the season. Ended up getting hurt and missing pretty well all the rest of the year. So he was on the final year of his contract. Montreal was hoping to trade him at the point when they picked him up. He wasn't doing well, had battled a lot of bad injuries for a couple of years, so his numbers were down. They were looking for an asset they could kind of rehabilitate and try to sell higher to make a profit, basically, and get a good pick coming back or prospect or something. And then, of course, the injuries didn't let that happen. So they re-signed him for pretty team-friendly 1-year deal. And he's out playing it this year. He's certainly making that contract look real good. And not only that, he's become a very important player for the team. So much so now that Ken Hughes is making comments saying that he's so important to the team that they may not move him. They may choose to talk about an extension. Of course, they can't do that until January the 1st, so they have some time to see how things go. Obviously, Monahan's had a pretty solid career with the exception of a couple of years where numbers were down, like I said, but he was really had a lot of injuries, including some hip problems, which was really limiting his mobility and making it a lot more challenging for him to be productive. But now that he's feeling better and healthy, he's playing a lot more like we thought he would and what he was capable of a number of years back. As much as we expect Montreal to be a little bit active later in the season, regardless of where they are in the standings, not at this point. Monahan is not a for sure player that they're going to move. Now, of course, keep in mind as well with Ken Hughes, he wants to drive up Monahan's value, so he's going to talk about how important he is and how impressed he is with him as well. So we'll see if the sentiment is still the same in a few months time. Now, talking about some of the other rumors around the NHL, looking at the New York Islanders, there's definitely some talk around them from various NHL insiders talking about the possibility of a coaching change. I know, according to Elliot Friedman, from what he's hearing, he talked about the Islanders a bit on the Jeff Merrick show today. Again, with the secrecy that Lou Lamoriello keeps, it's difficult to nail down what the team might be doing, but he said based on what he's heard from other teams, it sounds like Lou for sure is active and busy. Of course, with the GM meetings taking place in Toronto over the last few days, a lot of reporters like Friedman have been able to talk to a lot of the NHL general managers, get different comments on things, and certainly, get a feel for what's happening behind the scenes. And certainly a lot of them are saying that Lou is active out there for sure. But there is some speculation that the future of Lane Lambert is not secure. This team, again, is underperforming. Lou pretty well stead pat in the offseason, brought back the same group, which a lot of people expected to be where they are now. It's not a huge shocker. It's believed they want to add at least one decent blue liner, ideally a top four, and a winger who can play with Horvat and Barzal. That's not going to be an easy task. They don't have a ton of great assets, and really should they be trading their draft capital when the prospect pool cupboard is as thin as it is? So it's a tough situation in Long Island, to be completely honest and fair. I'm not sure how they're going to kind of retool this team a little bit, but they're certainly out there. They're looking. Lou is rumored to be very active, but for the past year and a half or more, there's been lots of speculation of Lou activity, but nothing's ever come from it. So I don't know. I mean, I can understand it's challenging in the climate that they're in to make trades at times, but at some point you got to bite the bullet and get something done. So we'll see where things go with the Islanders, but it wouldn't be shocking if there's a coaching change in the near future, or if they do manage to pull off a trade. That's the rumored kind of players that they're currently looking for. So we'll see. Of course, last night we saw the Islanders back to Vancouver. Bo Horvat's return to the Canucks in Vancouver. Emotional tribute for Horvat. He scored a nice goal as well. Ultimately, the Islanders had a good lead, but the Canucks came back, ended up taking a 1-goal victory from them. So another blown lead and loss piling up for the Islanders, who I think have only have one win in their last, I think it's 7 or 8 games. It's getting to the point where it's piling up and something has to give. With the Edmonton Oilers, of course, with lots of talk and speculation about goaltending and pulling off a goalie trade, and I still think there's a really good chance that we might see that happen. I think that they're probably going to pump the brakes on that for maybe a week or two, just to kind of get a feel for how this coaching change is going to go. They've won a couple of games in a row under Chris Knoblauch. Obviously, they had a comeback victory against the Kraken last night with Evander Kane scoring a natural hat trick, with the second goal coming late to tie it, and then the overtime winner to seal the victory for the Oilers. So I think they're kind of, let Skinner run with this for a little bit if they can. So far, he's got a couple of wins there, and see where it goes before they pull off a trade. But a couple of the names they were looking at that's still rumored to be kind of out there. Barry Trotz, for example, the GM of the Predators, made comments about UC Saros, because Saros was a name that a lot of NHL reporters were saying that the Oilers were interested in after. But according to comments from the Preds GM, he's not interested in trading Saros and wants to sign him to be with the team longer term. Obviously, he kind of acknowledges the team needs a bit of a reset, retool, but wants him to be the backbone of the team moving forward. So do expect a potential contract extension for Saros, and a trade just doesn't seem likely. There's certainly plenty of other targets. I know the Flyers are open to moving Carter Hart, but it's going to be a hefty price. But there was a lot of talk between the Oilers and the Habs before, and to be honest, I think this is the most likely destination that we see the Oilers go to get a goalie if they do indeed pull the trigger on this. In Montreal, they have 3 goalies on the roster. Caden Primo is going to get the start tonight against the Golden Knights. They clearly do not want to lose him. They refuse to put him on waivers because they think he'll get picked up. Samuel Montembeault is in the process of negotiating a contract extension. They really like Montembeault, and it's not that they don't like Jake Allen, but that leaves Jake, the older goalie, kind of slowly becoming the odd man out. And I'm not saying odd man out in terms that he's not going to play or anything like that. His play this year has been pretty decent. He'll still get his fair share of starts while he's there. But if you look at the long-term outlook, to me, it just looks more and more likely that he's going to be the guy that they move. When you hear the fact that they don't want to lose Primo, Montembeault's getting an extension, it is kind of a process of elimination here. Jake does have a form of a modified no trade, so I don't know what teams he would block. I don't think he really wants to be moved. I think the family situation works well for him where he's at there, but at the same time, it's not completely within his control. So we'll see if that ends up coming to fruition or not. Obviously, there's plenty of other teams out there that the Oilers could look to, but it just seems to be, from what everybody's saying in the rumor mill about goaltenders and Edmonton, it keeps coming back there. And regardless if it's Edmonton or somebody else, if the Habs do move a goalie eventually, and it's expected that they will, it just looks more and more likely that Jake's going to be the guy to go. When it comes to the Leafs, Elliotte Friedman was talking today on the Jeff Merrick show that after John Klingberg was scratched for a game last week, he was told, keep an eye on the situation. It could be a case of Klingberg going to Robidas Island. For those of you who don't know what Robidas Island is, I'm not going to take the time to greatly explain it, but essentially it's kind of like they make a player just kind of go away. They haven't been happy with Klingberg's play. He hasn't fit in. And at this point, there's been, even though he's a Swede and they're in Sweden for the Global Series, they haven't played yet, of course, but he's not really getting any media attention at all. It's almost like he's not there. It just seems like he's likely going to be not with the team too long, if I had to make a prediction. So I don't know that he's going to Robidas Island, but I think with all the rumors about Calgary and Toronto and Zadorov and Tanev, I think the Flames are going to have to take Klingberg here to make this work. I think we're going to see a possibility of guys like Klingberg and maybe Timothy Liljegren, along with maybe Eberzazy. I don't know about Fraser Minton, like some combination of that. I don't know if it really boils down to how much money Calgary retains in the contracts, if they get both guys. It's hard to say how that deal is expected to go down, but it is expected to be something that likely does go down, barring something unforeseen that we can't predict. And at this point, I think Klingberg's going to be involved. And I think that they're just trying to keep a low key on Klingberg because of that. I don't know. There's rumors about an injury. I kind of wonder if it might be a case of just him needing a break, and a reset after he's kind of become the team whipping boy with the fans. It's not an easy market to play in. I don't know. Hard to say what's going on there, but if Elliott's hearing about Klingberg being on Robidas Island, that's just kind of a little bit odd. But it kind of sounds like they just kind of want him to kind of go away. And I'm not sure if they can include him because I think he has, I'd have to check cap friendly, but I believe he has a modified no trade clause too. And will he try to block a deal? Can they do that? It's complicated, but that's the latest on the Leafs and Klingberg. He's not expected to be there for too long. They're going to find a way to move on. And at this point, I think the trade with the Flames is going to go down sometime after they return from Sweden. So we're probably looking at about a week to 10 days away. Hard to say. Of course, it depends on the Calgary Flames and if they find everything acceptable, because it does take two to tango. We don't know fully on their side. I don't know if they're in a huge rush. They're going to want to make sure they get the best deal. But we know Trey Living's been pretty relentless and wants to get this done ASAP. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.